Georgia State is number one after the just thorough beating of the Gators on Saturday. They actually gained a few more spots in the poll compared to where they were a week ago in terms of first place votes. But they are sort of firmly for the voters. They are sort of firmly where you want to be, which is the number one spot. And I don't know if that's going to change unless they lose. But anyway, let's go backwards from 25. It's K-State at 25. USC barely in this team. James Madison. And then Kansas at 22. Tulane, UCLA at 20. Tennessee checking in at 19 after a really solid win over Kentucky. Utah at 18 after a really destructive loss that they had to Oregon. Oregon State, another team with a Pac-12 loss. Louisville at 15. Missouri will come into Athens as the number 14 team in the country. How will they leave? With a win or a loss? LSU at 13. Notre Dame at 12. And then a week from Saturday, Ole Miss comes to town. If Ole Miss takes care of Texas A&M, they'll come in as a top 10 team. Likely. Not certainly, but likely. They're at 11. Oklahoma, just look, they had a great win over Texas. It's not been good the rest of the year. It's been fine, but just too many. The game against Cincinnati, the game against UCF, and now the loss to Kansas. No, just not good. Penn State was not great on Saturday either. They needed that was rough. A home loss to Indiana would have been disastrous, but I think they will get another loss here sooner than later. Alabama. You took your eye off Alabama. They're at 8-7 for Texas, who played really solid against BYU this week. Oregon probably with the best win, which was over Utah on the road. Washington, again, it's a lot of flashing red lights and sirens and alerts and all that stuff for UW as well. Another not very good performance from them. Florida State at 4 really played well. Ohio State, Michigan was off this week. And then the Dogs at number 1. Georgia with 48 first-place votes. 9 for Michigan, 3 for Ohio State, 3 for Florida State. Here's what we've got for you. Check out EcoPoly. This is one of the many chairs that we have spotlighted. I'm going to show you some new stuff later this week, probably starting in Final Feelings. But you're going to get 15% off any order, including free shipping. It's about to be Halloween. You need to be thinking about if you want a big Christmas gift for someone, EcoPoly can give you exactly what you need and a lot of the colors that you may be looking for, quite frankly. Take advantage of what we've got for you. 15% off. There's so many different things that they can offer for you. Check that out today. The link is down below. Use the code to get the 15% off and the free shipping. I think, for Georgia, now you've got, it's just hard to tell nationally sort of what people thought of Georgia and the win over Florida, because Florida's really not really respected the way that they have been, 10 years ago or even 4 years ago. But I think, this is probably the best that Georgia's played in a game, along with the Kentucky game and the UAB game, maybe the Ball State game as well. I think that, against Auburn, playing on the road, that was a tough one. They beat South Carolina solidly. It wasn't great. And then, what's the other game people were freaking out about? Yeah, Vanderbilt. Look, Georgia's playing well right now. I was talking with someone else earlier today that covers the team, and their response about the Vanderbilt game was, I didn't realize how bad Georgia beat them until I went back and watched it. And, they just really thumped Vanderbilt. This was very similar with what they did to the Gators on Saturday. I'm not surprised. I told y'all ahead of time. I really felt strongly that Georgia would dominate this game, and they did. They completely dominated. And when you look forward, I wanted to try to tell you by the third quarter. Let's see, by the third quarter what the numbers were for Florida. Florida had 66 rushing yards in the fourth quarter. So, they had like 110. That means like they had very few yards rushing when it really mattered. they wound up with 109. And what did I say? They had 66 in the fourth quarter. That's they went into the fourth quarter with 43 yards rushing. I mean, I remember going in the half. I think they had 12. Like, they just got thoroughly outplayed, in every way. It just was, it was bad. 147 in the fourth quarter for Florida in terms of just total yardage. So, it doesn't take somebody from DeKalb County very long to figure it out. But total yards, Florida wound up with, is this right? Yeah, 339. And of the 339, how many were in the fourth quarter? Well, 66 rushing and then 147 passing. I mean, they were really having a hard time doing much of anything outside of that first drive. I don't know what's happening. I got Kirby on speed dial here. They're going to keep calling me too. Outside of that first drive, Florida just didn't do anything. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. Second quarter, they had. I'm just trying to see here all these distractions. Second quarter, they had 31. They had a high. Let's see, 100. I mean, is this cumulative? I guess I should stop trying to do that when there's people knocking on the door and calling on their iPads. Welcome to Parenting 101 in 2023. But it was total domination by this Georgia team. Defensively, they've been playing really well, and I don't think that's going to stop. Like, the challenge for Missouri coming into this thing, first of all, Missouri is playing well. They're lost to they should have lost to LSU. I'm not sure they should have lost by 10, but they should have lost to LSU. But they've played pretty well this season, generally speaking. At the beginning of the year, they were not so great. I mean, they barely beat Middle Tennessee at home. That was a big win over Kansas State at home. They did not play well against Memphis, and they only won that game by a touchdown. But since then, generally speaking, they've started playing better. When you look at their game against Vanderbilt, they won that game by 17. They lost to LSU. I can't say they played bad in that game, having watched all of it. They really played well against Kentucky. They won that game on the road by 17. Now, they've only played on the road at at Vanderbilt and at Kentucky. Vanderbilt on the road, that's not close to Georgia at home. Kentucky is closer. So they've played on a hostile situation. They got down in that game. I think they were down 14-0 to Kentucky. Let me check that. They were down 14-0, and then they just zoomed past Kentucky quick. So I think this is going to be a really challenging game for Missouri to win on a lot of levels. I mean, if Georgia, first of all, if Georgia plays like they did Saturday, they're not losing to anybody. So that's first of all. But and I don't think it's really that big a deal for them to replicate what they did yesterday. That said, like, Missouri is really good at, like, they're dangerous. Luther Burden, the passing is a dangerous thing. They're gonna hit a ball or two. I don't know, and I'll talk about this over time the rest of the way. Like, they played Memphis and St. Louis. That's like, I don't know, maybe it was a where we are thing, and like, I don't know. But like, if once they get to the red zone, they're like knockout good. They're really good. My concern for Missouri is coming on the road. You're going to need to run it a little bit. If you want to say they have a weakness on offense, it's rushing. It's running the ball. I mean, they're 73 rushing it nationally. That's fine. It's not great. And I think against Georgia, that's going to be a real challenge. But they are playing well. And I think, this line is 16, 17 points, something like that. That's probably about right. That's kind of what I thought Florida would wind up being, and it was 14. So that's probably about what it should be, frankly. But I think that it's going to be hard for them to get the job done in Athens. But I need to watch a little bit more and just see what's going on. But Missouri has not played in front of more than 62,000 people this season. They're about to go play in front of 93,000. Now, does that extra third, does that extra 33%, does that matter? I don't know. I mean, again, at Kentucky, that's close enough to what Georgia. I mean, it approaches what Georgia is. I mean, it's not. But what I'm saying is, it's not like they've just played at Vanderbilt. Like when Kentucky came to Athens, they had played just at Vandy, and that was it. But so and then and this is another thing here too, man. Like you're going on the road, and you're one of the most penalized teams in college football. So that's bad. That's bad. 7 penalties a game. Again, that's what happened with Florida. So I think it's a problematic matchup for Missouri for a lot of different reasons. But sort of some of the things that you look at are not great. Again, you talk about not great. This whole week for Michigan was bad. It's rough. And they're going to be like in schedule purgatory still for a little bit of time. They're not where they need to be playing teams. Georgia has that in common to some degree, but Georgia's played 2 of their rivals. Michigan's played 1, Michigan State. I mean, Michigan and Ohio State are not both getting in the playoff this year. I don't. Ohio State's not been good enough. Michigan's not been good enough. Ohio State's got the win over Notre Dame, which I think is a really good win. But like Oregon and Washington, a 1-loss. I mean, they could possibly both get in theory. I don't. It's looking like to me, there are only really probably 2 leagues that could get 2 in, which is the Big Ten and the SEC. We're just going to have to see how it plays out. But right now, this Georgia schedule, like right now, they're going to be playing at least 4 top 20s from here on out. Tennessee, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Alabama or LSU. 4 to close this thing out, and it's going to matter if you're the number 1 seed this time. And why I say that is this. Whoever gets the 4, that's going to be a much less difficult game than playing Florida State. So I think, if you can avoid playing them, Florida State, you'd like to do that. But let's just see how this shakes out. We're going to see where the, committee has things and all this stuff. We'll have reaction. Make sure you're checking out Dawg Post. Make sure you're signing up for our newsletter. If you're not, you're missing out on a lot of stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the newsletter.